Hey, good afternoon, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I am so excited to be able to now bring you Crime Crunchies. I am still at CrimeCon, although I am leaving a little bit early, but I am bringing you the tea. It's a tiny baby tea, but it's a tea nonetheless. I will be going more in depth about my experience at CrimeCon tomorrow when I am back home and have a little bit more time. So let me share my screen and we're going to get into some goods. And while I am doing that, please always remember to like, share, subscribe. This is a no super chat, no super sticker, no money wanted zone. I just want you to love your family, give them a kiss, buy some groceries, okay? Don't want your stuff. All right. So, CrimeCon, we're going to watch a video of Nate Eaton interviewing Nancy Grace. I did attend Nancy Grace's session. I missed, and I know I lose. I'm a loser. I missed Michael Ruiz's session, and luckily he has a portion of his session online because, of course, he's the one who has the drip, okay? We're going to watch his video, and we're going to read some information about his update on Nancy. Apparently, the sheriff has given a statement that he hasn't shared a statement in a very long time. And basically, the juice is that the feds have some new tech toys that they're going to be using in the Nancy Guthrie case, searching for her. And yes, I am possibly rethinking some of the things I've been thinking about, and I'll be talking to you guys about that as well. But let's watch this video from his session yesterday at CrimeCon on the stage.
Before we got on stage, we've been in touch with our sources on this case. Just a few minutes before we got on stage, we've been in touch with our sources on this case from day one. We continue to communicate as much as we can. I heard from a really good federal source that they're now discussing bringing in new tools into the investigation. We're more than 100 days in, and the new tools are tech type tools. I don't have more specifics than that yet. I'll try to get that, but they're looking at technology with new tools to examine something this far into the case.
And I should explain a little bit about how we get the information we get sometimes that comes onto TV, if you're not familiar with the background. We ended up staging with all our cameras and all of that in the parking lot of the Pima County Sheriff's Office, which is a big area, and they were gracious enough to let us do it. But we're stuck there having to be on camera. And so sometimes people will come, they'll see us and they'll say, I'm going to go down there. And in fact, I got a number of former law enforcement and other people who had information coming in to sort of give us some backgrounding. And we, of course, always made sure that if it were pertinent, it went to the task force. But Mike, he doesn't have to be on camera all day, every day. Sometimes you do. He gets to go around and work the various areas. And that's why he's getting such good information like that. We also heard something else just today that puts another light on where the investigation is right now that I think bears mentioning. That came from a source of Donna's.
So I heard late last night, and then it hit the news today, that Savannah has now spent $500,000 of her own money hiring investigators to try to help with this case. And so what that tells me is she's clearly not satisfied with the fact that this is taking as long as it has. And I don't think she has a lot of faith in where law enforcement has taken this to this point.
All right. I don't know if you guys, the sound wasn't that great. So not a whole lot of detail, but Michael Ruiz has his insider sources, and he is saying that for sure the feds are using some new tech toys. I'm not sure exactly what those are. He did not explain what those are, but that they've got some new tech gadgets that they're going to be using. Hopefully we will get more information about what that is if they're able to share it. The female on the stage as well mentioned what I covered the other night, and that is that Savannah has invested at least $500,000 in a private investigator team, which has been ongoing actually now for over a month. They quietly went into hiring their own PI team. I'm not surprised they went this route. I would have actually expected it to have occurred maybe day 30, that they probably were thinking about getting their own personal team, considering, in the very first week, we were all sitting on the edge of our seats hoping that they could recover a live Nancy Guthrie. And of course, that did not happen. And then our hearts have been dropping ever since. We all are pretty sure that she is not around anymore. And maybe the PI team is there just to see if they can get any leads and try to scramble any remains for the family. I genuinely think that the family really just wants the remains, and of course justice at this point. But really, I think their priority is just getting their mother back. She doesn't deserve to have been left somewhere, unmarked and left alone. That would make me lose sleep, just that in and of itself. So again, not a lot of detail, but I mean, we're grasping at straws right now, looking for any new information. So hopefully we will get more insight into what these tech tools are later on. But let me go into his, the thread here. I've got, I believe, an article. Yeah, let me do my little switcheroo. My little screen switcheroo. And let me pull up an article and see if that might have any information on it. CrimeCon panel, this is the one. Okay, and I'm going to read this aloud like they do in school. It's like, children, gather around. CrimeCon panel reveals new details in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. More than 100 days after Nancy Guthrie was last seen, investigators are considering bringing in new tools to help them find her. While speaking at a CrimeCon panel focused on the disappearance of the 84-year-old, Fox Digital reporter Michael Ruiz revealed that he got new information just minutes before taking the stage. I heard from a really good federal source that they are now discussing bringing in new tools to the investigation, he said, specifying that the tools would be technological, which is great. Again, we're grasping at straws. We're going to take whatever we can get, but I feel like it's not enough. I need more. I need to know, what is it? What are they looking at? I don't know if they can share it. If they shared it, would it give us some insight into the path that they're taking? And maybe they don't want to share that. But I really appreciate his boots on the ground reporting and the fact that he even got that. Defense attorney Donna Rotano, also on the panel, revealed that she learned Savannah Guthrie, Nancy Guthrie's daughter and the host of Today on NBC, has now spent $500,000 of her own money hiring investigators to help with the case. So that tells me she's not satisfied, Rotano said. And I don't think she has a lot of faith in where law enforcement has taken us to this point. Quote, initially, everyone thought this was a missing person case, Rotano said. Quote, and the way investigators walked into it initially probably wasn't with the right set of lenses, unquote. Rotana criticized the way investigators handled the case, including failing to gather certain pieces of evidence and failing to block people from the crime scene. In fact, Ruiz was able to walk directly up to the door of Nancy Guthrie's home. Quote, the deputy told me to, he explained. Fox Nation's Paul Morrow said the failure to secure the scene and gather the appropriate evidence quickly will make it harder to prosecute any potential case down the line. A potential key piece of evidence in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is a hair found at her home. The Pima County Sheriff's Office, the lead agency investigating the case, and I'm questioning that, wanted to examine the hair for potential DNA at a lab in Florida rather than use the FBI's lab in Quantico, Virginia. Quote, it looks to me like they were not cooperating, Morrow said. The DNA should have gone right to the FBI, unquote. Despite the FBI sending a plane to fly the hair from the scene to the Quantico lab, it took 11 weeks for federal agents to get access to the evidence. Discussing the ransom notes in the case, the panelists all agreed that it's unlikely any were penned by the kidnapper. Quote, the last place you go to is TMZ, unquote, investigator Josh Ritter said. Quote, to me, that was someone looking for attention rather than looking to gain a ransom in a legitimate kidnapping, unquote. The notes also lacked any urgency or proof of life, which is unusual in kidnapping cases. So that is very interesting that this panel does not think that any of the ransom notes were real. Savannah thinks that at least 2 of them are real based on whatever information she has. And I would have to think, I don't know if that's wishful thinking on her part or if that's specific information that she's gotten, but I do trust that the information that Savannah shared in that interview with Hoda is true to the best of her knowledge, to the knowledge that she had at least at that time. And I could see a pattern of an obsessed fan who part of this was emotional, wanting to get attention. I could see that fitting their MO of sending a ransom note that was basically worthless to TMZ and the Tucson TV station. I think that that would definitely fall in line with somebody who's wanting attention more so than the ransom. So it really just falls down to, again, who the kidnapper really is. And it's interesting, Nancy Grace was on yesterday, and we're going to watch an interview that Nate Eaton did with her. It's about 10 minutes long. And she had enough time for a Q&A session at the end. And there were a lot of people that asked questions. I was the first person to ask questions. I just got up there and I'm like, I'm not missing my shot. And Chris McDonough and Jeffrey Scott Morgan were kind of co-panelists. They were in the audience, but I was sitting right next to them. And so I got a firsthand, look at them and what they were doing. And that was very exciting. I got some selfies that I'll share with you guys on another live. But Nancy Grace did not have any new information in her session. And I was really, really hoping that she would have some new information. And that's why I'm upset I missed Michael Ruiz's session, because it looks like he had even a tiny bit of new information, even though, it doesn't really give us a lot of answers. At least they're still looking at this and they're bringing in some new tech gadgets. What that is and what they're looking for, I have no idea. I would love to learn that. But there were, some people, Joe, asking about like the backpack that Porch Guy was wearing. There were people talking about, the fact that maybe there's a woman and a man involved with this. The fact that Nancy Grace definitely thinks that there's more than one. Some people that were in the Q&A session were thinking that when Porch Guy held up the shrubbery at the camera, that it could be he was covering the camera because he was looking inside and maybe going to signal or knock for somebody to come out, maybe give the all clear. Nobody talked about the items in the house. In particular, somebody asked about what could be in that backpack because it looked very full, very fluffy and puffy. And of course, Nancy's like, we have no idea. She has no idea what is in the backpack. And so it was really Nancy Grace, and I loved seeing her. She's just as bubbly. She's just as quirky in person as she is on TV. And, she did a really good job covering, the case with what we know right now, but there wasn't anything new to learn from her session. Again, Michael Ruiz really did have, and it really just a tiny soundbite with the fact that the feds have some new tech tools that they're going to use in looking for Nancy. And of course, Savannah has her own PI team. But really, probably one of the more buzzed about sessions. There were actually 2 sessions in the main ballroom for Nancy Guthrie, and filled the room. I mean, there were people lined up all the way down the escalators, just waiting in line, pushing and shoving to get in to see Nancy Grace. So she was a wonderful way to start off the conference. And again, I got to meet a lot of folks. Let me go to her video. Let me unshare and share. And let's watch Nate Eaton interview Miss Nancy Grace. YouTube. And hopefully the sound is better on this one, but let's just take a little, it's about 10 minutes. I'm going to just play the whole darn thing because you know what? It's a Saturday afternoon and we love Nancy. All right, so let me get this going.
Hey everybody, we are here at CrimeCon Las Vegas, the one and only Nancy Grace, who a few years ago you strangled me on camera. Last year you threatened to cut my mic. What's going to happen?
Well, you know what they say about repeat offenders. Okay.
You saw that. You saw that. What are you talking about here this year?
I'm talking about Nancy Guthrie. And in my mind, Nate, Nancy, Mrs. Guthrie, has taken on a bigger meaning for me. Yes, I know Savannah, and I'm attacked constantly that my opinion is swayed because I'm friends with Savannah. That's absolutely not true. Of course, I looked at the family, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I'm standing by that, and I reject that suggestion. But when I say it's taken on a bigger meaning, I mean, for Pete's sake, you've got the Cellular Analysis Survey team, you've got Google on it, you got Apple on it, you got the Pima County Sheriff's Department on it, you got the FBI, you got Trump offering to help in any way, you got a fixed-wing aircraft waiting to take the DNA to a lab. You've got the best lab in the country doing it. What the hey? What's happening?
Is she still alive?
I do not want to answer. You know what? That's not a good answer. In criminal law, you can't say, I don't want to answer that. I make other people answer harsh questions. So the answer is, I doubt very seriously that Miss Guthrie is still alive. Is there a chance? Yes, there is a chance. And maybe I'm projecting, Nate, because you know my 94-year-old, soon to be 95-year-old mother lives with me. And there's no way she could survive. I mean, if my mom even went into a rest home, I don't think she would live because she needs constant care.
Right.
And when you take someone out of their surroundings and out of their routine, someone of that age, away from their meds, away from their doctors, away from their caregivers, it doesn't go well. Based on the blood on the front porch, I believe she was struck. She did not spontaneously start bleeding. But where does that leave the rest of us? If with all of those resources we can't find Nancy Guthrie, it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Alex Murdaugh.
I'm not through with Nancy Guthrie
Oh,
yet.
sorry. I didn't want to keep going.
I think that chasing after fantastical theories is the waste of time. And I do not like any waste of time. I don't like people who repeat themselves. I don't like doing the same thing over and over. I'm one of those drivers that wants to make the green light, okay? Say I'm going to write a book one day. Red lights matter, okay? You add up 10 of them and you're like an hour late, right? So what I'm saying is chasing down preposterous theories is a waste of resources, time, and we can put all of our energy and our brain power toward figuring this out. I keep thinking, Nate, that they're on the cusp, that they have a suspect in mind that they're keeping under their vest, not Pima County sheriffs. Of course not, because there's,
I think the sheriff said he's no longer talking to the family.
My takeaway, he said he's no longer talking. Thank you, heaven. If he would just shut his pie hole, we'd all be a lot better off. That said, I doubt if the FBI was on to a suspect that they would share it with him at all. And I hate to denigrate all the exceptional men and women that are in Pima County Sheriff's Department, but they have been sullied by his involvement in this case. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
That said, I still hold out hope that and believe, not just a hope, I believe her kidnapper will be found.
Good.
You don't sound very hopeful.
You've covered enough of these to know that on the twist of a dime, 40 years later, somebody could be found. Let's hope it's not that long. But then, I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you have to say at your presentation. Now let me ask you about Alex Murdaugh. Becky Hill. What do you think about that?
Rebecca Hill. I got to know Rebecca Hill during the trial, and she was bubbly, polite, helpful, courteous, efficient. Did she make those comments? Yeah, according to multiple jurors, she did. Do I think that's why Alex Murdaugh was found guilty? No, I think Murdaugh did that all on his own. He is guilty. That's why they found him guilty, because he is guilty, not because Becky Hill made some offhand comments. Were they inappropriate? Yes, they were inappropriate. Do I think it resulted in a guilty verdict? No, I think the jury would have found him guilty anyway because he did it. But that said, Nate, the South Carolina Supreme Court had no other choice. They had to reverse it under the law. I'm sure it was odious to them, and they did it holding their nose, but they had to do it because that is the law. When you have a juror state under oath, that affected my verdict. The Supreme Court cannot say, I don't believe it. That's what was written in the black and the white transcript.
Yeah.
So they had no choice.
Corey Richins, I was just on your show talking about that. You saw her faces during the sentencing and the statements from her little boys that said they never want to see her again. She still has another trial coming up.
See, my number one job, my reason for being here, my raison d'etre, is to raise my twins. So it's very hard for me to take in anyone that thinks killing the father is in any way a benefit to your children. Just the cold, calculated nature of her crime. And it wasn't the first time. She tried before.
And if you just joined us, we're watching Nancy Grace and Nate Eaton. She started out talking about Nancy Guthrie, and she's gone into a couple other cases, but we've got like 3.5 minutes. I'm just going to let it play because it is interesting to hear what she has to say. So just follow along.
And it didn't work. So she was like, strike two that we know of. How do I know there wasn't another attempt? But to do that, not just to your husband, but to your children. And for the rest of their lives, they're going to try to figure out why. And I know that they're being raised by loving family, but there is no substitute for a mom and dad. There's just not.
Yeah. You got any fun plans this summer that you want to share?
Yeah, I want to put bad guys in jail. Next. Fun plans. It's not how my mind thinks. Sorry.
Nancy does not have fun every day.
I have a lot of fun.
She's serious all the time.
I have a lot of fun.
Yes.
But yeah, I have a lot of fun with my children, with my family. But I really want to see justice unfold. And as difficult as it is for me to take in, Murdaugh getting a new trial is justice under our jurisprudence.
Yeah.
Do I like it? No, I do not like it. at all, because he did a horrible thing. I mean, think about it. I was just talking about Corey Richins killing Eric Richins, the father of her children, forever hurting them every day for the rest of their lives. But think about what Murdaugh did. While the mother of his children is down, her face in the dirt, he comes up to her, puts a gun in her back, and pulls the trigger. How can you do that? So I'm just wondering how it's going to play out. The AG is making noises, the district attorney is making noises about seeking the death penalty. And, you know, typically when a reversal is had, the state cannot seek a greater sentence than was imposed the first time.
Right.
But what they are saying in that jurisdiction, it was never tried for the death penalty. A jury never said no death penalty. So I think that there is a 50-50 chance they may seek the death penalty on Alex Murdaugh.
That'd be something.
Yes, it would.
Thank you, Nancy. I got you something. After you strangled me, that says, life goal, keep my mugshot off East Idaho News.
Let me see.
I will wear it proudly.
Yes. If we ever have Nancy Grace in a mugshot, you'll see it here first.
So
She apparently strangled. Oh, let me.
what I have to say about all of the crimes we've discussed is that the beat goes on. We will continue in our own way seeking justice. We will continue representing crime victims that cannot speak for themselves. And we will continue doing what we believe is right, come hell or high water.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching, Nancy. Hey, everybody. We are here at CrimeCon.
Like Nancy, it's interesting because, you know, these people are literally walking through the aisles and the hallways, and they're everywhere, and there's some arranged meet and greets, but I mean, you really just see them in the hallway, and a lot of times they're just standing there and people, you know, congregate around them and take selfies. And I think these folks, I think they love it, you know, just being able to do this, you know, with folks that they appreciate their fans, because that's the reason why they're in business. But this gentleman on the left of Nancy, to my right, probably your right as well, this is Dave Mack. This is her little sidekick. And I attended a session this morning, the yogurt shop murders, and I'm gonna cover that. I'm gonna do a case explained episode, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things that I learned that I didn't know, because it was attended by the brother of the youngest victim and his wife, and they've really have really kept the case going, and they've actually solved the case. It took many, many, many years for them to solve the case, but there was some new information in that. And then between the yogurt shop murders this morning, and I also attended a Scott Peterson session where Mark Garagos, his defense attorney, a Los Angeles detective, and a reporter, investigative reporter who covered the story at the time of Laci Peterson's missing. You know, Scott Peterson has had the Los Angeles Innocent. Is it the Innocent? It's the group. Of course, I do this every time. I lose my brain. The Innocents. You know, the people that help you, the Innocence Files. I'm going to remember it when I'm done. But it's the group that helps people who've been wrongly convicted to help get them, you know, exonerated. Okay, the Innocence Project. Thank you, God. I can always count on you guys. Thank you. Woo. So in between that, I went to the expo, and that's where everybody is set up. And they had Othram, the DNA, had the entire center of the expo. But Dave Mack, this guy, he was manning Jeffrey Scott Morgan's body bags booth. And I'm not sure, they must be buddies. They probably collaborate on things together. But Dave Mack, you know, he's got that iconic voice when you're watching Nancy Grace. And he was just the sweetest guy. And I literally was standing there talking to him with a group of people. I joined them, in conversation. They were talking about Nancy Guthrie. And they were talking about, and he wasn't sharing his opinion. I want to be perfectly clear. This was not Dave Mack's opinion. But they were talking about, how typically it's the last person to see the victim, or it's the first person who finds the body, okay, who is typically the person who's guilty of, kidnapping or the murder or whatever, okay? And of course, that leads to Annie and T. I'll just use T. And there was something that I wasn't aware of that Dave Mack, being on the inside, knew about the case. And I think that, I only know what I read or what I hear, and it's like almost a game of telephone. So when Dave Mack shared that day, Carrillo from Los Angeles texted T about where's the Bitcoin, they're waiting for it, and I'm paraphrasing. Apparently, Annie got the exact same text. Where's the Bitcoin? They're waiting for it. And I wasn't aware that they each separately got a text from Carrillo. Okay. And that again, I just can't imagine that there are coincidences here. Okay. And again, I'm not putting any words in Dave Mack's mouth. He said, he was very clear, I'm not making an opinion or stating an opinion, but, and I've covered this, when you go to the school website where T works, an average teacher salary is $53,000 a year. Dave Mack mentioned that Annie either wasn't making any money, or I don't know if she's in between jobs. I know she does writing or poetry. And, that kind of just swoops me right back into where I try to stay away from. Okay. And I try to stay away from that because I'm very protective of the family. Okay. Because if it isn't the family, it just makes it worse that people are just latching on. It just seems like low-hanging fruit. It's the easy way to go because it's typical. It's what statistically makes sense. An 84-year-old woman. And I know again, looking at all the different, motives and theories, they could have had an argument that night at dinner. There could have easily been an argument about money. They could have asked mom for money, and mom said, no, I'm done payrolling you guys. And I mean, we don't even really know if mom got home that night. We only know what A and T have shared. And I know that a lot of us have been tied up with the garage door. And I don't even need to explain the garage door because I bet you all could quote the garage door in exact times. That's how much we all know this case. It doesn't make sense, the garage door. Could it be that somebody pulled up and, understanding the technology, had to open the door, waited a few seconds, and then shut the door and then drove home? So it appeared that somebody returned, mom home. So, and I have to say, during Nancy Guthrie's session, she, again, Jeffrey Scott Morgan was kind of a mini panel. They were out in the audience with Chris McDonough, and Nancy called Chris McDonough out because on the interview room, there's no secret that he in his words, he says, I haven't left the house. He hasn't left the house. He still thinks that the family is tied, that there's too much pointing to a family tie still. There's not enough I mean, it's dripping with questions. And I mean, it's not a good look. Okay. It's not a good look. And when Dave Mack told me just today that T got a text, where's the Bitcoin? And A got a text, where's the Bitcoin? You know, minutes apart on both of their phones. I'm sorry, but you know, and I apologize to the family, but it has to be, I feel like it's a fair shot, you know? And I did Q&A with Nancy, and it's funny. I have no problem putting myself out there, you know, because I just want this figured out. And I've said many times, I don't have to be right. I don't care. You know, and I don't care if someone says you're wrong, or after all this thing is solved and I was way off. I just want it solved. There's no pride. There's no nanny. I was right, you were wrong. I'm just trying to figure out what makes sense. But I told Nancy, you know, I said Cam says it's 100% linked to Savannah. And she says, well, yeah, we all know that. Okay, well, then that's not a family thing. That's not a family. If it's linked to, you can't have it both ways. If everybody knows it's 100% linked to Savannah, which is what Cam has said, then that tells us that there's an obsessed fan of Savannah's. That's not the family. Those are two completely different scenarios, okay? But she said, McDonough, you know, why don't you explain why you still think it's a family? And, you know, he just went through a few of the things like I'm talking about now. There wasn't anything really, you know, remarkable that we all know the deal. We all know the story. We all know the details, but he's just in his experience, and, you know, people see stuff. And this is a pattern. No one's going to just pick an 84-year-old without a very specific reason. And it was just very interesting to me when Dave Mack tells me today. It just kind of wakes up. My brain just starts whirring again. And I was not aware that they both got the text at separate times, you know, in a close time frame of each other. I wasn't sure exactly. I thought maybe T had just gotten it. I didn't think Annie had gotten it, but they both got the text. And, you know, that tells me that someone's having a conversation with someone wanting Bitcoin, and that there had been a past conversation about someone going to get Bitcoin. And if it isn't just T, then A's involved as well. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't want that to be the center, but I don't think that we can leave it off the table. I don't think we can leave it off the table. I can say that Michael Ruiz mentioned that he'd gotten a statement from the sheriff. Let me stop sharing this and I'll share what he got. And it doesn't look like anything new to me, though. But we'll just take a look at it. So, update, according to sources with knowledge of the investigation, the feds are discussing bringing in new tech tools into the Nancy Guthrie investigation. No further details yet on what kind, though. So again, if you're just joining me, that is the nugget, the tea from CrimeCon is Michael Ruiz is saying that he's gotten word from his secret sources, secret squirrel sources, that there are new toys, tech toys, being brought in the search. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what the focus is, but he also has this note on X, and he also shared this with the audience. Good morning from Las Vegas. Here's the latest from the Pima County Sheriff's Department on the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Detectives are not yet done with Nancy's home security video. Forensic analysis is still underway. We haven't heard about home video in a really long time. Okay. Same with the DNA, according to a department spokesperson. So no dead ends yet. They're still working on DNA. And he has this in caps. Has anyone been ruled out? Maybe he's asking this. PCSC refers us back to the sheriff's prior statements attached below. The intruder has not yet been publicly identified. Current and former investigators tell me they're still hopeful someone recognizes this guy. He may have changed his behavior and or appearance after Nancy's abduction on February 1st, and again after the FBI released her nest video on February 10th. It remains unclear whether he acted alone. Anyone with information is urged to dial 1-800-CALL-FBI. And here is the statement that they referred Michael Ruiz to, a statement from Sheriff Chris Nanos on the Nancy Guthrie investigation. To be clear, and this is in quotes, to be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I'm begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism. So is it a red herring? You know, or I don't know. And can we trust anything Nano says? You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Half the time people are putting him down and calling him worthless. But if we don't trust what somebody says some of the time, should we trust what they say all of the time? Well, okay, so this is a good question, Jake. And so if they got a text on their phone, why didn't the FBI trace it? And I believe that they did. And Carrillo was arrested. Carrillo, let me pull this up. Text to Annie Guthrie. Okay, so this is what it says. In early February 2026, an imposter. Okay, that's about hold on. Okay, let me just read it. An imposter targeted Savannah Guthrie's family with fake ransom text messages demanding Bitcoin shortly after they released a video plea for information regarding kidnapping. The FBI traced these messages to a California man, Derek Kalela, who was arrested and confessed to sending the extortionate threats, though he was not connected to the original crime. Officials say they're investigating new message regarding Nancy Guthrie, and this is today the Catalina Foothills Association told residents in a letter that authorities were resuming searches. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So he did get arrested, but he was let out on bond. Former police and professor of law YouTuber Charles Brewer said that maybe Savannah treated somebody in a mean, rude way because he thinks the case is a revenge-oriented crime. And that's where I've kind of been going as well. And it's very possible that, you know, it's, and I said that in my line of questioning with Nancy Grace, I just, you know, because she asked for questions or theories. And so I said, I think that this could be professional retaliation. And she just went, ha, 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 ha. Now you're going way outside. She said, but then she said, but wait, hold that idea. You know, and it's a compliment. If you get yelled at by Nancy Guthrie or Nancy Grace, it's a compliment. So she thought that my theory of a professional retaliation was hysterical. And it probably is. Okay. But I mean, and I said, it's just a theory. I'm sorry. Yeah, Dr. Burgess said that this kidnapping is revenge kidnapping. Of course, you know, and that's why it's driving me nutty because I can totally see how it could be possibly the family. Only because if Annie's was not working and T's only making $53,000 on average a year, and they're in, $600,000-$700,000 house in Tucson, and they have a child, that's not a lot. We don't know what was going on with their mom. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that are just so weird and just don't make sense. And how is it that if these texts are not connected, it's like lightning striking, that literally Nancy is taken in the middle of a night, and within 1 or 2 days, they happen to get this extortionate text? Was this person taking advantage of the situation? Is it not connected? I don't know. And I don't remember who the person is, but there's also an FBI profiler or an FBI person who believes that they have the name. It's somewhere in the files, and it's always with these cases, it turns out that they have the name and leads that they just have to go through, and they have to circle everything, all the wagons around. And so it's very possible they have a line on somebody. But like Nancy said in the video, we're not going to know. The feds are never going to tell us if they have somebody. And Jennifer Coffindaffer has said the feds, what they do is they get the whole case, they get it tightened up, they get all their ducks in a row, they get it like packaged up with a little bow. And it's like, okay, here you go. You're ready for trial. Let's go get the guy. And the feds will get everything nicely packaged, because the last thing they want is for this to, get somebody detained, arraigned, in custody, and then have the judge throw out a bunch of evidence and let them go. And they cannot have that happen. And so that's why it's imperative that we all have to just be patient, and it's very possible that they could get this thing wrapped up in the coming months. But I believe that, the DNA that Nano sent off to Florida, apparently, I think Nancy Grace was saying, apparently the type of DNA that they had, that they needed done, the DNA lab in Florida doesn't handle that type of DNA at all. And according to Nancy Grace, sending it to the lab in Florida was a total waste of time, and that they could have had it in hours to Quantico. And so it's where it needs to be now. But I have to say that we're all waiting on this DNA. We don't even know if it's the perp. It could be somebody who shampooed the carpets. It could be someone who come in and clean the windows. It could be someone, it could be a hair from the UPS guy. It's like Lovegate. We're all sitting here waiting on this one thing, and it may not be that one thing. And hopefully there's other DNA that they've got that we just don't know about. Everyone's talking about the spit and the dribble from the bite light, and how there's no way he didn't, touching and taking that thing out, had goo all over his gloves, and then touching everything. If they did a good job and they took, enough samples from doorknobs, and, everyone screams about the mat on the front porch, but we don't know. Maybe they swabbed it. They didn't need to take it, which is, to me, it's just ridiculous. They 100% know he stood there. So ultimately, nothing really new for Nancy, only that Michael Ruiz has said that the feds have some new tech gadgets that they're using, or tech tools, or methods that they're going to be using in the case. I don't know what that is. And, you know, that's about it. There wasn't anything new to learn on that. You know, I did learn some new things again about the yogurt shop murders and Scott Peterson, and that's coming out. I'm going to do some case explained episodes on those and some of the information that I learned about those, just because they are interesting. I know that I'm kind of the Nancy Guthrie gal, and I think you guys are my Nancy Guthrie peeps. So hopefully you stay. If I do cover some other stories that are coming up, hopefully you stay and watch those too. I hope you do. I hope you hang out with me, because it's always going to be Nancy. Yeah, so Savannah has hired a team of expert people in different fields, and they are now working on it. And as I mentioned last time, if her team learns anything new that PCSD or the FBI does not have, if they come up with new information or new lead, they have to hand it over and let the feds or PCSD take the lead and run with it. So they can get into trouble if they like flesh out a lead on their own, but let's hope that they can do something. Let's hope that they can do something. So that is my update. I hope you all are having the best Saturday ever. I will be back in my office tomorrow, and I will share some information. I'll do a quick CrimeCon recap, but I am going to do a case explained on yogurt shop murders and the Scott Peterson, because there's some new stuff coming out about Scott Peterson and the Innocence Project. And I have to say, listening to Mark Garagos today on stage, it's pretty compelling. If you take Scott Peterson and his, you know, moldy, wet dish rag personality out and how he appeared, you know, it was quite compelling. So I appreciate everybody joining me here today. Please remember again to subscribe, like, turn on that bell so you'll be notified when I go live. I appreciate you all so much. And until next time, I will catch you on the flip side. Toodaloo.